Angie, what's
Hi,
up?
guys.
Hey, mama.
It's so good. It's so good to see you both.
It's
It's
great
so
to
good
see
to see you.
Congrats on
Yeah.
Congrats on the podcast being in the world. It's one thing to say you're doing it and then put it in the can and rattle some people, but another thing when it goes out into the world.
Listen, thank you. You got us started.
Oh, that's very sweet. I can't wait till my episode comes. I'm very excited.
it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be so good.
I've been telling everybody that I know that I'm on your podcast. So very exciting over here. So what's the reception been like? What's the initial feeling of putting this out into the world?
You know, I have a little bit more experience than my brother does in putting, yourself out there. I mean, writing 2 books. I've talked about how, when you're working on a project that's very personal, you're sitting with it for a long time. Oftentimes when it comes to a book, it's a year or so, you working on it and reading drafts and then it's published. And your first response is, oh no, what did I say? And it's like, so I've gotten used to getting over that hump, but there's always that bit of, oh my God, what did we say? What have we been talking about? But I don't know, Craig, how do you feel?
This is new for because you're not as used to it, Craig.
Well, I would hold on that one because what I have that my sister doesn't have is because that I'm a coach and I talk to the media all the time. I get instant feedback, good or bad, immediately on my stuff, right? So, and I am more in the public eye than Misha is on an everyday basis, right? Like I'm walking around, I got no security. I'm going to the store, I'm coaching kids, I'm running into people on the streets, and it's been fantastic. I mean, I've been to 2 different tournaments where at least 3 people come up to me, men and women. It's really been neat, and say, "Hey, I'm listening to you and your sister on your podcast. You guys are doing great. It resonates with me. It's so nice to see siblings who have a great relationship." And I say that because since Misha and I have such a great relationship, I always assume that most brothers and sisters do, but I'm finding out in the streets out here, most of them don't.
Yeah, I know a few of those. I can cite a few of those.
So it's been great.
You too, because it's one thing. This has happened to me too, even in my podcast. Sometimes you say things that you wouldn't normally talk about. It forces you to extend the conversation past what might be normal banter. I just wonder for you two, has anything come up? Is there anything that you've learned about each other or didn't know or
that's a good
come
question.
across with each other?
But, wait, Angie. So we get along famously, right? But just recently we were on someone else's podcast, and the question was, did you have a strict upbringing?
Oh yeah.
And Mish was like, no. I don't think it was strict. And I was like, yeah, mine was really strict. And what I've found is there are times when we talk about things that happened to us in the past that we both remember differently because it comes from a different perspective. And that's been really cool. That's been really cool because I always just assume that my sister sees most things the way I see it, especially in our upbringing.
Yeah, that's fun though. That's fun.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
That right. I loved on I think it was the Amy Poehler episode. You were talking about how your daughters finally take advice from you.
Yeah.
After people wait in line to see you speak, to hear the great Michelle Obama. I mean, the whole country was going high. You are great inspiration for so many women, especially, and your daughters, for some reason, have started.
Yeah, you are not a prophet in your own home, even if you are Michelle Obama. I mean, and that's been the beauty of having kids through this experience. Angie, every parent understands this. I mean, having kids normalizes you, I mean, and it wasn't just me. I mean, you were sitting in the White House and, Barack's day was the last day they cared. To hear about his day was the last thing they wanted to hear, I mean, we're sitting around, they just killed Osama bin Laden, or he's dealing with financial crisis. And Malia and Sasha are like, let me tell you about the gossip in 5th grade. You know, let me break down this stuff. So no, we are still their parents. And until recently, now that they're adults in the world, they are on their own. They've graduated from college. They're holding down jobs. Now our wisdom makes sense, right? I mean, now it's like
as a mother, that must feel like a great accomplishment.
Well,
like you finally have earned that from them.
Yeah, well, now you realize they were listening, and I think we all go through that. I mean, because as parents, we do the best that we can all throughout their days, and growing up, we try to make the best decisions. But deep down inside, all of us are thinking, I hope I'm not messing this up. I hope I'm getting it right. I hope these lessons stick. I hope I wasn't too strict over here and not strict enough. Yeah. And it's not until they're out in the world that you see, if you're fortunate, that, oh my God, they were listening. It didn't feel like it when they were 15, 16, but now I'm starting to see them come into their full selves. And yes, it is a joy to watch.
That is beautiful. Will we ever one day hear them or see them on the pod, them or Barack on the pod, you think?
That's a good question.
What is it going to take? What do we got to know?
That would be fun. We've talked about it. We may have some things in line coming up, but I think, our kids, and I think it's true for both Craig's kids and my kids, they sort of they want to make their own way. And they want to have control over how they show up in the world. And when they attach themselves to our stuff, I mean, we have an older daughter who is in film, and, just because we have a production company, she's like, she would not do a project with us if she got paid millions. And when her first short came out, or she won an award for, she didn't even use her last name, Angie. I mean, and it was just like, I respect that.
I was wondering how you felt about that.
Yeah. So look, all of our kids are storytellers. They got stuff to say. They are always invited, but I think we will leave it to them to see if we can get them.
And Angie, the best part about it, if we could ever get them on, is your last question about our kids listening to us. It would be great to see my sister and me give out some kind of opinion, and then the eye roll coming from our own kids, right? Like they would be like, "Oh, listen to this. They never did this when we were growing up." I mean, it would be fantastic content, right? And Misha and I, Malia and Sasha, and my 2 older kids, Avery and Leslie, sort of grew up together. So when they get together, they are extremely funny. And then we have 2 younger, I have 2 younger kids who are following right in the footsteps. And if we could ever get them on, it would be really good content. But to Misha's point, I could see them be like, we're not going on that show. No way.
Do another podcast.
That's right, really.
Before they do you. What's been the most meaningful episode to you guys so far? Do you have a fave? I know it's hard. People ask me that question as what I do. I'm always like, I can't answer that.
I know, really.
Maybe Angie, I don't know how you can remember. I mean, it's really hard. And I try to listen to all of ours so that I know what I'm saying and don't want to say the same thing over and over again. So it's really hard, except we did back in the summer that an episode that just aired recently about losing our mom. That's been the most meaningful for me up to this date. And it was just me and Mish, right? That was it. It was just the 2 of us. And we laughed, we got choked up, we got sentimental, and it was really moving at a time when we needed it, right? Because we were dealing with the grief still. We were dealing with the loss and the missing her, and talking about how fun it would have been to have her on the show.
Yeah.
And how we would have had to talk her into being on, but once she got on, she'd end up being the funniest guest we've ever had, right? So for me, that would be the most meaningful. But I want to say this: all of our guests have been tremendous, and I have to say I learned something new on every single episode, so it's really been neat.
I love that. That must have been a super, just a healing moment. So to be that free, because sometimes hard things like that, it's uncomfortable for people, especially when it's still fresh. You know, you're not 10 years down the line when you have.
That's right.
That's right. Yep.
You're still in it.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that was required some vulnerability, like real deep down.
Yeah, it took us a second. I mean, our team was, they asked if we were ready, and it took us, like half a year after Mom's death before both Craig and I felt like we could have that conversation without breaking down. But it's also, I mean, it feels good to be able to say out loud just how much our mom meant to us, to give her that shine, so it's like our parents are the reason we are who we are today. And there isn't a day that goes by that either one of us, that something they have told us isn't ringing through our heads, how we want to show up in the world, and it's just a reminder of how powerful good parenting can be. And it doesn't take money, Angie. Our parents didn't have connections. They didn't have resources. We were poor.
I grew up in an apartment the same size as probably this studio.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so many times we as parents, we think it's the stuff we give our kids. And all of us, we were raised with just the opposite, that if you have consistency, if you can hear your child's voice, if you show love and create some boundaries, I would just want parents out there to know, that's what good parenting is. It's not the stuff. It's not the, it's not the money. Because we didn't have any of it. And it's just, it's just sharing those lessons. Because I know there are parents out there who wonder, am I doing enough? And I think a lot of times we do too much. And our parents were the kind of parents, they handed us our lives, they gave us love, and, they watched us grow, they allowed us to fail, and they, gave us unconditional love through it all. And that's what it takes. So that was a good, it was a privilege to be able to pay tribute to our mother.
And it's so meaningful that, I mean, a lot of the episodes, I think they've landed really well. They're always on my feed. I think the episodes landed well. That's a super meaningful one that will, I'm sure, resonate with people. But I wonder for you guys, like, because this is something I battle with too. It's the sea of podcasts in the world.
Yeah.
It's like overflowing. Everybody's got a podcast in the sea. Where do you find the purpose or the meaning, or where do you hope this podcast lands?
That's a good question.
In the sea of what's happening. I asked myself that question all the time. I have to like reconvince myself that this conversation matters.
It's worth it.
My perspective is unique. My view or my questioning is different. And so I try to always find those meaningful ways to kind of like
But
for you guys, I wonder what that is,
Yeah, I think at least for me, Angie, Mish touched on a little bit how has touched on
me.
She's touched on a little bit about how this is like a tribute to our parents, right? So it's kind of giving them those flowers. So that's always a nice thing. But man, in these times when people sort of need something different, people are upset, they're distracted, they're off center, wobbly. We just want to be here the way our parents were there for us when we went through those kinds of times, and gave us some great advice and allowed us to achieve what we achieved. And then thanks to my sister's platform, we can kind of use that to share that with folks. So I just hope it's landing well. And like I said at the outset, sort of getting the actual in-person, in-time feedback from folks, like, just, I still walk the streets with no bodyguards, right? So I get that. So I want people to come away feeling uplifted and impacted. Those are two words that I think about all the time. And I just hope we're doing that. And I know Mish knows this, but I can say this here. She's been so impactful in her life, but especially in her time in the White House and then after the White House. People really hang on, I won't say every word, but they hang on a lot of her words. So it's really nice to be here as a conduit to help those words get out there so that the regular person realizes, this is just a regular girl from the South Side of Chicago who made good and now wants to give back. That's a really good feeling.
So you think of this as an offering, right? Like a give back. The podcast is kind of a give back.
Absolutely.
For sure. And Angie, like, there are a sea of podcasts out there, but there's still a lot of white space, because not, the podcast community, the demographics still, there are a lot of people who aren't, they don't feel like some of these voices are for them. Right. And there's still some spaces out there for that where people feel like they see themselves. So I agree. There's a lot out there, but there's still a lot of voices, a lot of people, a lot of perspectives and backgrounds where folks don't have access to these platforms, at least at the level that we do. And so my hope is also that we create a voice out there that does feel somewhat unique to people who are searching for a platform to find themselves reflected in a way. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit of hubris for me to think that as the former First Lady that people can connect with me and my experiences, but I think that that's really the point,
I think that's for you to. I think that's a proven fact that people connect with you and your story.
Yeah. I don't think it's hubris. That's a Robinson modesty coming out right there.
Yeah, that's why we love you. But speaking of content too, what's happening with your production company too? You've done a couple of great things already.
Yeah. We're having some fun on that side too. Starting 5. You've got Barack's side of things, so he's starting 5, and the piece on the USA basketball team going for court of gold. Those are among my favorites that are out there because, my brother and my husband will say I always complain about too much sports in our lives, but I am one for a good sports drama. I mean, I'm crying along with the audience. And so we've got that. But, I've had my show that I've been very involved in, which is Later Daters, which is a dating show for. So we're that's been so much fun to do because guess what? People 50 plus and older like us, we're pretty doggone fly,
I agree.
And we ain't done yet. We're ready to keep living. And I think this show is a reflection.
Wild though. Some guys are bananas.
But it's fun. So, we've got,
I watched it with my mom. Me and my mom.
It's the best thing. So we're working on season 2, still, waiting to get the green light from Netflix, but we're hopeful that, people have loved it. And it's been a fun project to work on. So we got a lot of stuff in the hopper for the coming year. We're learning about production and how long it takes and finding good content. This is a business that's no joke, and there's a long, lead time to get stuff up and running. But it's been a fun way to continue the process of sharing stories, because Barack and I still believe that that's how people are learning. We're learning by seeing each other's stories. People don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to be dictated to. The best way to get to people is through the stories that they watch and seeing themselves depicted on screen in fictional and non-fictional ways. So it has been a fun next chapter.
Yeah, I totally agree. What are you guys inspired by? Like, what are you watching? Are there any shows you guys are watching right now, or you got any show recommendations? Did you see Forever on Netflix?
You know what? Angie, I'm saving that. Everybody has told me, but because I've got some travel coming up, and I'm always, I want to have some good, I got some long trips, and I want some good watching. So the things that I really, really want to see, I kind of save. But I watch all the reality TV stuff. I did what was the see, this is my old brain. It's like, what was the name of that show? Where they were in Thailand and the couples. White Lotus.
White Lotus. Okay.
Yeah. That was fun. Running Point on Netflix was one of my favorites. I love the documentaries that they have on Netflix and some of the comedy specials. I'm a big fan of Mark Bergaze's stand-up. He's like a regular dad, and he's got a new special. It's not brand new, but so my range of watching is like all over the place. Everything from unscripted reality stuff to whatever is the hottest thing. I finished watching Paradise. I'm slow to that.
That was good. That was really good.
I'm way into Paradise, ready for the next season. I love Hacks. Hacks is one of my favorites with it's Gene Smart.
So you got a good watch.
Oh yeah. I just have to remember it,
Pick for us.
Angie, you and I have jobs, so we can't watch as much as she does.
Oh, dad.
You and us, we're still working.
This is why
my brother could talk to you like that.
I'd have to slap him in the back of his head if he were close to me.
He does nothing but sit home and watch TV all day.
That's right.
Man, she named so many more shows than I thought she was going to name. I was like, dang, how can you have time for all this?
You got to find time. You guys are in the content.
That's right. That's right, boy. You better catch up. You can't just watch the playoffs, my friend. That's because I am not watching the playoffs.
Angie.
I'm not watching the playoffs. The Knicks are playing tonight, Craig.
I know all about
it. She about to get herself in trouble with your audience, right? The
Knicks are playing tonight, guys.
I know. I wish you all luck. Craig worked for the Knicks. That was his team.
Angie knows. Knows I work for the Knicks. Shoot, we gonna be cheering them on.
Well, tell about how you feel about tonight's game, Craig. How do you feel? What do you got?
So every time I watch the Knicks, I get nervous, especially in these playoff games. They play better on the road.
Listen,
so I'm nervous.
We don't need any negativity. We don't need.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous, and I'm rooting for those guys. And I love Indianapolis, Indiana. I love Indianapolis. I love the Indiana Pacers. But the Knicks have their hands full because the rotation's too short for me as a coach. They don't have enough bench. But I can't wait for this thing to get started.
There's so much doubt in your statement, Craig.
You will see, Angie. When you get to you got to remember, I'm a coach, so I manage my expectations to the negative, because I want to be surprised to the positive. But that's how you think as a coach. You're like, what can go wrong? Wow, wowsy, woo woo.
I want the record to show that I have Knicks in 5. I want the record to show.
Okay. Well, you're just you know.
That's
you're just a crazy person over there.
That's blatantly irresponsible.
Shots fired on me above my face.
It's like you're not even supposed to say that out loud, Angie.
I'm saying you have to.
I mean, that's just like, I just feel like that's just a jinx. That's too much of it. Because I'm like Craig too. I'm like, well, if you want somebody to win, you better act like they're gonna lose.
Right.
You know,
my literal moniker is the voice of New York. If not me, then who? This is what I'm supposed to.
Okay. All right. Well,
the White House and things were going bad. You are still going to be the positive you were still going to be the positive reinforcement for us.
Outwardly, yes, but internally,
go, this is bad.
Yeah, but internally, you'd still I'd go high in public, and then, I'd sit low sometimes around the kitchen table and be like, what is going on?
Hey, when you know how the sausage is made, you are not.
You never go in 5. You never, ever. But I pray, Angie, that you have not jinxed the Knicks.
Thank you for your prayers. I thank you for your prayers. And I thank you for your podcast. And I thank you for joining us today.
And we thank you, Angie, for you. You are one of my favorite guests because you are one of my favorite people. You know what makes for a good show is somebody like you who is open and funny and honest and vulnerable. And when our conversation airs, people will see that you brought all that fire to our IMO episode. So thank you for your love.
It was an honor to be on the show. It absolutely was.
Oh, well, it's great getting to know you, Angie, and I echo everything my sister has said, and we look forward to visiting with you again.
Let's handle some business. So where tell people, give them the info. Craig, you can probably, either one of you.
Oh,
what are your? Is there anything you need to promote? Is there? Where do they find it?
You can find IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson anywhere, everywhere you get your podcast. So there's no excuse for folks not to listen. It'll be fun. We're having a blast, and I get to.
And aren't you supposed to say, remember, like and subscribe? Like and subscribe.
Look, she's
look at me. Look at
her. There.
Okay, listen, I'm going to let you go, but if the Knicks win in 5, I want at least a voice note of
you for sure.
You were right. I should have been more. Okay, just a
for sure.
Both of you would be really nice. Okay,
you got it.
You got it.
Thank you so much, Michelle Obama, Craig Robinson, IMO Podcast, where all podcasts are heard. Like.